Greetings, everybody. It's RPG Grandma, and I wanted to talk a little bit about converting monsters. Um, it can seem like a daunting thing. Uh, it's not as daunting as you would think, okay? Because the first thing you have to understand is that you can't actually get it wrong. I know that sounds weird, but it's true. And the reason is you opened up something, you looked in there, and you said, this thing, whatever it is, monster, technological gizmo, magical item, whatever it is so cool. But it was designed for a different game system that you're currently playing or you want to import it into. In the process of converting it, that thing, whatever it is going to go through some changes. It's just the way it is. And it's all right. It's okay to change, in fact, things that are in your own game that you don't have to convert. You didn't have to make any changes, but for whatever reason, it's going to work better if you make some changes. It's going to be more scary. It's going to work better the way your table is playing. People do that all the time. It's normal. So to not expect that to happen when you're going through the whole thought process of how you're going to use this in a game and doing any kind of math that converts between the systems, and some things are going to be pretty arbitrary. Even you're going to figure this out if you start converting monsters. So to expect your conversion to look exactly like somebody else's conversion of the same monster from the same thing into the same game that you're converting in is not a realistic expectation at all. It is an unrealistic expectation. So that's why I say you can't get it wrong. There will be some math, usually, but it's usually in how fast the creature moves, explosion radius, things like that. It's not, usually all that complicated. You usually don't have to do complicated. Oh, I got to convert the time ratios between the games, and I used to try to do all that. Believe me, it's don't. That's not what you want to do. You need to just get a general idea of how fast the thing moves from one system to the other. That's it. How fast it takes effect, how long it's going to take effect. And I said general because game systems can be quite different, and you're going to find yourself rounding up and rounding down. So you can do the exact math, but you're still going to find yourself rounding up and rounding down. You're still going to find yourself sitting there going, well, it looks like it goes about this fast in this system. It looks like it takes about this long in this system. So that's what I'm trying to get across to you. You don't need to be obsessive compulsive disorder over this. All right, you just need to have some general rules that you follow, and you're going to find yourself doing a lot of tweaking and finessing in the process. Okay, look at the game you're converting to. Does it have a section on how to make a monster or how to make a magical item or anything that would help you figure out how to create the thing that you want to move? That's your template. Now, sometimes games don't have that, unfortunately, in which case you need to look at what they do have in them. How do they present poison? How do they present disease? How do they present a technological gizmo or a magical item so that you would understand it as a game master? How do they present a monster? Because that's going to be your template that you're then going to follow for moving the thing. Now, in our case, we're talking about monsters, so that's your template. That's your outline. So then you go back to the original monster and you start reading it and seeing what you can just automatically fill in over here. But in the process, you need to be asking yourself questions. How am I going to use this? What did I like about it? What don't I like about it? If I was making this, what would I change? How, uh, come up with multiple ways it could be used in different scenarios. Um, how does the creature live? Maybe, you don't have to answer every question, but what you're doing is you're developing a thought process, um, and you're homing in on how you want to present this thing. When I describe what it does, how am I going to describe that to people? You're not necessarily putting this all in the description box, but you want to imagine. Try to think how you would describe it moving, how you describe it tearing one of the PCs apart, whatever it's doing, annihilating the PC, over there. And what is that going to look like? And then look at your rules. Look at the stat blocks and fill in appropriate things. Understanding the game it's coming from at least a little bit will help you. So for instance, DNA Monster. I actually wrote like a 7-page paper on how I converted it as an example for somebody. So they could read through that if they choose. So they would have a process and an understanding of how to convert something from original D&D into Star Frontiers, and how I got from point A to point B. But like I said, I could give that monster to like a bunch of different people and say, we're all going to convert it to Alpha Dawn rules, and everyone would end up with something different. There'd be similarities, but there'd be big differences, and that's okay. So that's what I'm trying to get across to you guys. You can't do it wrong, because it's for your table. It's for the game you're playing. It's how you're envisioning it working. You can, in fact, starting with the same monster, come up with different ways to envision the same monster for different games. It's going to look a little bit different. It's going to act a little bit different. But you started at the same monster and you're the same person. It's just the way it's going to work out. So when we look at the DNA Monster, it says it has 3 hit die. What does that mean in old D&D? Well, in old D&D, it means when it was its turn to do something, it got 3 attacks. We'll start there. It also means it's appropriate for a 3rd level monster in a dungeon. It also means that it gets 3 hit dice for its hit points. The monster looks silly, but the monster seems fairly dangerous. So I maintained it gets 3 attacks over in Star Frontiers every time it's its turn, because it strikes fast, even though it moves slow as heck when it's just cruising around. I did the math to figure it out. It was it probably should be listed as a very slow monster if I didn't change its speed. I could have changed its speed. I could have made it a fast monster. So all of that stuff, and I had to understand the difference between D&D's, say, armor class, things like that, so I can explain it over in Star Frontiers. But it doesn't mean I have to sit here and be able to tell you every rule that's in old Dungeons and Dragons, the original stuff, and the early printings, and the early times that these fan magazines were being produced, to move it into the 80s when Star Frontiers was around using D100. I just have to have a general idea of how it would function if I was playing that game here, and how it would function if I was playing this other game over here. And then I make judgment calls. I round things up. I round things down. I do what I call cowboy math. I do not necessarily get obsessive about the math. I get an idea, and then I take those ideas and I apply them to the new rules.